What's up, basketball fans? It's your boy Nadze back again with another video, and today we'll be doing the Michael Porter Jr. analysis. Michael Porter Jr. is a 6'10", 220-pound small forward / power forward with a 7-foot wingspan and a 9'7" reach out of Missouri. Okay, look, Porter was very coveted coming out of high school. He was the #2 recruit behind Marvin Bagley. But this season he only played 53 minutes, and according to himself, in those 53 minutes he was only 65 to 70% healthy. I'm not exactly sure how much stock we should put into this, seeing as though we weren't seeing the former #2 recruit in the country but a shell of himself. That being said, we must first address his injury that sidelined him for 4 months and what effects it will have on him athletically. He had a microdiscectomy, which involved a couple spinal discs in his lower back to fix herniated disc tissue around his spinal cord, which is something athletes such as Tiger Woods, Peyton Manning, and Dwight Howard have undergone and had successful careers. However, no one is sure how it will affect him due to his frame and whatnot, so everything I say will be a mixture of things we saw at Missouri in the 2 games that he did play compared to his high school career. This analysis will have a little more emphasis on the mental side and his IQ than usual, since athleticism isn't a dependable indicator of what he'll become at this point. The first part of his game I wanted to focus on was his athleticism / body control and motor skills. It is apparent that the injury left Porter with a lot less explosiveness, seeing as though he was settling for layups when in high school he could soar above the rim when given space. 100% healthy, Porter should be able to finish above the rim again, so I'm not really worried about it. He should be able to be an alley-oop target as well. On drives, his body control has been abysmal, but in high school he knew how to use his body and used it with his athleticism effortlessly. At times, it was downright impressive, the things that he was able to do. In the first Georgia game, the body control was a real issue, but against Florida State, you could kind of see that he rebounded from it a little bit. Porter, in the games that he did play, was not able to push the ball full speed due to his diminished coordination. Another thing that shouldn't hinder him long term as long as his recovery goes smoothly. But a lot of this is due to Porter's lack of recognition of his physical limitations, which has something to do with that IQ. I feel as though he should have known that he's not going to be able to do the things that he was once able to do just coming off an injury. And according to himself, he was only 65 to 70% ready, so I just feel like that has something to do with maturity a little bit, because maybe he was trying to do too much. But at the same time, I did hear that Missouri did not have enough players, so if he did not play, they would have had to forfeit a game or not been able to play in the tournament or something like that, and it put their team at a massive disadvantage. So that shows something about his character. He's not incredibly quick, whether that's in the straight line in drives or just laterally. Laterally, he's very slow actually, and that's gonna lead me into my second point, which is defense. This is the part of Porter's game that was never good, even in high school, which is telling, because if you can't do it in high school, you probably weren't able to do it in college, and if you can't do it in college, you definitely can't do it in the NBA. Porter loves to hard hedge on screens, which will lead to him getting abused in the NBA, seeing as though even pre-injury he was not quick enough to contain NBA level guards, and he still is not from what we saw in college. Porter must settle for those soft hedges and sag back to simply contain guards at the next level, because if he keeps doing those hard hedges, he's going to get blown by and get exposed, and that's not going to be very good for his team. He has a pretty weak lower body, which causes him to struggle in the post. He oftentimes chases steals, and he should be a very good secondary rim protector if he decides to play help defense. His pick and roll defensive IQ has always been pretty suspect. And seeing as though that the pick and roll is the NBA's favorite way to attack, he may struggle on the defensive end when it matters the most, the playoffs. Much like a player like Kevin Love be able to get around in the regular season, but any coach with half a brain will attack him for easy buckets in the pick and roll when it matters most, which is the playoffs. Off ball, he also struggles to stay with his man. Especially now with that limited mobility, he won't be able to recover like he may have been able to in college when he makes those mental lapses. But it's mainly due to his ball watching tendencies, which compromises the defense. He plays very little help defense, and due to this, it kind of negates the tools that he has. Like I said, he has that 7-foot wingspan and a 9-foot standing reach. I mean, that's nice and all, but on the defensive end, if you're not going to play help, be a weak side shot blocker, then what's the point of having those tools, really? If you're not going to help out your teammates, what's the point? Because you're kind of like, you're just going to let people blow by your teammate, and then you're just going to watch them make the layup, really. I just wish he was a little bit more engaged defensively. And speaking of that, he also gives minimal effort on defense. Oftentimes, he doesn't even fight over screens or try to get through them. And he's very stiff defensively, and he stands up pretty much on the perimeter. And he very rarely gets into a defensive stance, which hinders his change of direction, deceleration, and ability to react, which leads to fouls. So you should be able to expect some high-scoring games when he plays fast or athletic guys with ball handling ability. So Kevin Durant might drop 45 on him, or Paul George, or any of those kind of guys. I feel like they'll just go off on him because he's not fast enough to guard him. He doesn't get down in the stance, he know how to draw fouls, and he just has a very low defensive IQ overall. But the pros of his defense, like I said, it's pretty much his body. He has a 7-foot wingspan, 9-foot standing reach, and that's just a safe bet. If someone has a very long wingspan, even though they might not have the highest IQ, the intangibles may be able to compensate for that. He has pretty good transition defense, considering he has pretty decent mobility when he's not injured. He might be able to guard 3s and 4s and maybe even 5s if he develops a little bit more. And if he does regain that athleticism and he gets in a good defensive system with a good defensive coach and player development, he might be able to be a very switchy defender and be able to switch on to some guards. I'm not expecting him to switch on to Damian Lillard, Russell Westbrook, or anything, but like your average guards in the NBA, pretty much. I'd expect him to be able to switch on to them and be okay. And he does show signs as a weak side shot blocker. He has pretty good timing when he does decide to help, and I just think those physical tools really help compensate for some of those weaknesses that he does have. And under defense is kind of rebounding, since it does close out possessions. And he's a pretty good defensive rebounder. In high school, he averaged 16 rebounds in the EYBL, which is not anything to laugh at, because EYBL, that's the best of the best in the country right there. So yeah, he's a good defensive rebounder, which leads me to his offense, because right now, as a ball handler, he's going to be able to get it and go. Like, if he gets a rebound, he's going to be able to push the tempo, and I feel like he's going to get a lot of points, draw a lot of fouls that way. But the first thing I really wanted to talk about in his offense is that shooting, because first of all, what I want to highlight is that form. He has great form, super high release. He has proper arc. He elevates on his jumper, good touch, and he has a dip in his shot from rhythm. That oftentimes helps, but he sometimes dips a little bit too much, which on the NBA level, guys are going to be on it like that, so you might need to lessen it a little bit. But even the best shooters dip, like Stephen Curry dips sometimes. So next I want to talk about that shot creation, which is pretty much the #1 thing why people are considering drafting him that high. Pull-up jumpers galore. That's all I have to say when I'm talking about that shot creation. He's shown the ability to go up the court full speed and stop on a dime and pull up in transition from NBA range. He was doing that in high school. We saw that once or twice in the Florida State game as well. He could fluidly get into his shot off of screens, and especially at 6'10". However, his value isn't 100% on making those shots off of screens and whatnot, but it's mainly in his ability to make tough shots, because plays don't always work, so tough shot making is valuable when the play breaks down and you just need someone to get a bucket pretty much. Michael Porter Jr.'s value goes up in that area the more the shot clock runs out. And this is made easier by his length on top of his elevation and touch. While being taller than your traditional small forwards, he's very good in pick and pop situations, which will make him very valuable at the 4 position. He has lots of potential off pin downs, and if he does become a upper echelon offensive player, he's going to be more so like Paul George and Kevin Durant, in my opinion, because basically he's just going to have to shoot off of momentum and gravity off of the pin downs and whatnot. In space, he's a pretty good ball handler, but the tighter it gets, the worse he gets, so he's pretty bad at half court, and when he's driving to the basket, he's not the best in tight spaces. Slashing, he's limited to straight line drives. He loses the ball a lot on drives, and he's shown the ability to get to the rim at will, if that makes sense. Like, he can get there, but like on the way he might get stripped or something like that. So he'll have issues with quality defenders. And without his explosiveness, he still shows value by dominating with a plethora of runners, bank shots, and floaters. And it kind of gives me confidence in his finishing ability when he regains his body control and explosiveness, because he does have serious hang time, and once he can finish above the rim again, he can pretty much do whatever he wants around the basket because he has a plethora of finishes. He can finish above the rim with floaters, runners, bank shots. Very good offensive player, but like I said, he will have issues against those quality defenders. So if he gets matched up against a Andre Robertson or Paul George or something like that, they might shut him down a little bit because that ball handling and creation ability is not where it needs to be in the half court at this point. So he might try something, but his handle might be a little bit loose and a little bit too primitive and rudimentary at this point to be effective against these top level NBA defenders. So against a guy like Jimmy Butler, I would try to make him more of a off-ball player and not make him play very much on the ball. The weaknesses on offense is Porter struggles with his playmaking. He puts his head down a lot when he drives, so he's not seeing players very much. But another thing I noticed when watching that high school film is that although he might not be the best playmaker, you can kind of tell that he can see the plays he's developing and whatnot. Like, he has some sort of vision. Like, I can see him creeping up to around 4 assists a game or something like that. But I don't expect him to be LeBron James or heck, even Kevin Durant levels of passing. He gets tunnel vision at times. He's not a very good pick and roll ball handler due to his lack of playmaking, so he's not really a threat to pass the ball. You pretty much know he's going to try to look to score. So it kind of takes away the variety in the pick and roll, which makes it so the pick and roll is deadly because you don't know what's going to happen pretty much. And with Porter, you pretty much know what he's going to do. He's not necessarily the best pick and roll ball handler. He has bad shot selection at times, but the confidence he shows with that bad shot selection is encouraging to me because honestly, it's not always about making the shot. Like I said in the Mikal Bridges video, sometimes it's about willingness to take the shot, and then as he progresses and when he's in his prime, those shots are going to fall because that's just how player development usually works. Those shots are eventually going to fall, and he's going to be deadly when it happens. So keep taking those shots, Michael Porter. He's 19 right now, so basically he does have that issue with fitting into an offense. Other players can fit into an offense, but with those bad shots he does take, it kind of becomes hard to imagine him fitting into an offense at times because sometimes he just pulls dumb shots, just pure dumb shots. He'll have open teammates, he'll try to find his own rhythm and just take a dumb shot. And it's understandable, he's 19, but I don't know if he'll grow out of it because he's been doing it his whole life. I'm just not sure he'll grow out of it. And a new thing I wanna do in these videos is I don't want to give a direct player comparison because I feel like that kind of limits things and kind of puts unrealistic expectations on players. But I want to give more so of a pool of players. Like, he could be a mixture of these things, or you can pick one of these players and he could turn out like them. So here's the pool I wanted to put out: Rudy Gay, Danilo Gallinari, Paul George, Joe Johnson. If he doesn't get his athleticism, yes, Danilo Gallinari is probably what's going to be, which is still valuable as long as you don't overpay. But Rudy Gay, that could be kind of like, I don't want to say a floor because Rudy Gay is pretty good, but if he does regain that athleticism and he just doesn't produce like he should, Rudy Gay. Paul George is if he's like on the top of his game, because I don't really see the KD comparisons, they're lazy. But Joe Johnson as well, I just really like that comparison. And here's something I want to talk about. I want to rant a little bit on these KD comparisons. They're so lazy and cookie cutter that I just don't understand them. Just because you're tall, black, and you can shoot the ball, that does not mean that you're the next Kevin Durant. I mean, I just don't understand. They're just lazy. And think about this now. Only thing that Michael Porter Jr. and Kevin Durant have in common is that they're tall, black, and have a perimeter-oriented game. So I don't really understand. KD is longer than he is. He's faster. He's quicker. He's a much better ball handler. He has a quicker shot. He has a higher defensive IQ, and he's 2 inches taller than him because Kevin Durant is most definitely 7 feet tall. He has a higher overall IQ, not just defensive IQ, and he just seems more engaged than Michael Porter Jr. is. They're like not even the same player at all. And it just kind of made me upset when I keep hearing these KD comparisons when you see Jonathan Isaac. I kind of understand Kevin Durant with Brandon Ingram, but all these other players, I'm just not seeing it. And it's just kind of, why are you, I just don't understand. I might make a video on that actually, these old racially driven comparisons, like why does every white big man from Europe have to be compared to Dirk? I just don't understand that. Even just European players in general, like if you think of Luka Doncic, you're not really, the first thing that's going to come to your mind is Manu Ginobili or Peja Stojakovic or one of those players. Basically, because they're also European, we don't really think of American players when those guys come to mind. And you get the KD comparisons, and if you're light skinned and you can shoot in your point guard, you get the Stephen Curry comparisons like you see with Trae Young. It's just a lot. I might make a video. That might be my next video actually. And I'm sorry for the small little rant, but yeah, Michael Porter Jr. Very high offensive ceiling. Defensive ceiling is also very high, but I'm a little bit lower on that side of the ball. He should be fine. The injury shouldn't hinder him very much. And if he wasn't injured, he'd be a top 3 pick without a doubt. So whatever team gets him might actually get a steal because he could very well become a 25+ point per game scorer. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm out.